Hello, I'm Willie from the Ozarks, and I'm so glad that you've joined me today to study A Course in Miracles workbook for students here on February the 18th of 2023, Lesson 49. God's voice speaks to me all through the day. God's voice speaks to me all through the day. We're reading from the original edition. It is quite possible to listen to God's voice all through the day without interrupting your regular activities in any way. The part of your mind in which truth abides is in constant communication with God, whether you are aware of it or not. It is the other part of your mind that functions in the world and obeys the world's laws. It is this part which is constantly distracted, disorganized, and highly uncertain. The part that is listening to the voice of God is calm, always at rest, and wholly certain. The part that is listening to God, or the part that is listening to the voice of God, is calm, always at rest, and wholly certain. It is really the only part there is. The other part is a wild illusion, frantic and distraught, but without reality of any kind. Try today not to listen to it. Try to identify with the part of your mind where stillness and peace reign forever. Try to hear God's voice call to you lovingly, reminding you that your Creator has not forgotten His Son. We will need at least 4 5-minute practice periods today, and more if possible. So 4 5-minute practice periods, and you can take more if you want to. Matter of fact, he says more if possible. We will try actually to hear the voice reminding you of God and of yourself. We will approach this happiest and holiest of thoughts with confidence. We will approach this happiest and holiest of thoughts with confidence, knowing that in doing so we are joining our will with the will of God. He wants you to hear His voice. He gave it to you to be heard. Listen in deep silence. Be very still and open your mind. Go past all the raucous shrieks and sick imaginings that cover your real thoughts and obscure your eternal link with God. Sink deep into the peace that waits for you. Sink deep into the peace that is yours. Seek deep into the peace that waits for you. Beyond the frantic, riotous thoughts and sounds and sights of this insane world, you do not live there. We're trying to reach your real home. We're trying to reach the place where you are truly welcome. We are trying to reach God. Do not forget today to repeat today's idea very frequently. Do so with your eyes open when necessary, but closed when possible. So say the idea to yourself often today with your eyes open when necessary, but closed when possible. And be sure that you sit quietly and repeat the idea for today slowly, whenever you can, closing your eyes on the world and realizing that you are inviting God's voice to speak to you. God's voice speaks to me all through the day. Okay, let's go take a look in our text reading, and we're ready for, in Chapter 6, Attack and Fear, Section 4, The Relinquishment of Attack. And while you're turning there, if you'd like to follow along, which I'd encourage you to follow along, not that you necessarily have to, but, and I hope that, if you're really trying to make quick progress in this, don't just listen to me. Listen to me as a help, but be sure to read it yourself, maybe even more than once, or listen to it a time or two. But follow along so you can actually look at the words. At least that's what helps me a great deal. But I'm more of maybe a visual learner. You may be more of a listening type learner. So just follow your own inner guidance. Let's take a look at, where is Swiss chard? Not Swiss chard. Excuse me. a kale. There's 3 plants that I really encourage everybody to grow in their garden, and that's kale, Swiss chard, and beets. You know, those are the greens on those 3 are so highly nutrient rich that they're hard a lot of times to get for a lot of people. And you know, why not grow them yourself? Have a little connection with nature, you know, with the world. Dwarf blue curled Scotch kale is what we're going to read about out of the Seed Savers Exchange. It's a Brassica oleracea, and the dwarf blue curled Scotch kale is gorgeous, finely curled blue-green leaves, hold their color even in severe cold. Uniform, low-growing plants are 15 inches tall with a 20 to 35 inch spread, very hardy, will overwinter with mulch in zones 4 through 5. You know, zones 5 is Chicago area. So pretty far north, probably all the way up into Canada. I'm not sure where zone 4 is, but it's most of the United States. You can grow kale throughout the winter if you put a layer of straw over it, or, you know, mulch it in good, is what they're saying. Ornamental and delicious, high in vitamin A, 53 to 65 days from transplant. Now, to get it started, you won't be able to handle that real cold. You get it started indoors a lot of times, or you know, you have to be past most of the frost. Those young tender plants won't survive a hard frost. So start them indoors, maybe right now. Put them out, but they'll last good. They're one of those kind of plants that I've done pretty good even growing them in the summer. They will kind of, bugs are pretty hard on them, hard part of summer, but you can start them again in the fall, and I've had them go all the way through winter here in zone 6. So, you know, in the Ozarks, I've had them go through the winter many years. So anyway, that's your dwarf blue curled Scotch kale. The relinquishment of attack. That's what we want to do, is to give up our attack thoughts. We've used many words as synonymous which are not ordinarily regarded as the same. We began by having and being, and more recently have used others. Hearing and being are examples, to which we can also add teaching and being, and learning and being, and above all, projecting and being. You know, that's the kind of projecting of the Holy Spirit to extend love. How's he say it? Teach only love, for that is what you are. And you know, if that doesn't come real clear to you, go back to the other thing that I said was there at the last section of chapter 5. And he gives the way to move into this awareness of this atonement awareness, you might call it, in paragraph, I think that's paragraph 96, but it was the last paragraph of chapter 5, and he gives you the formula of how to reach back to that true self. Okay, so let's go on. Projecting and being. This is because, as we have said before, every idea begins in the mind of the thinker and extends outward. Therefore, what extends from the mind is still in it, and from what it extends, it knows itself. What extends from the mind is still in it, and from what it extends, it knows itself. That is its natural talent. The word knows is correct here, even though the ego does not know and is not concerned with being at all. 40. The Holy Spirit, and you know what, there's a whole lot of things that Jesus says in this book that I just don't quite get them, or sometimes I'm reading it so quick that I don't really take the time to know, you know, in these lessons, I a lot of times, what I'm trying to say is there's a lot of things that he says that I see them as very enlightening, to the point of just making me laugh, makes me happy. They're witty, they're humorous, they're joyful, they're uplifting. And just because I don't laugh doesn't mean that you shouldn't laugh when you see things like this. We want to get to where we really have a lot of joy as we're reading this, or when we're doing anything, actually. But this is an easy place to do it. The Holy Spirit holds knowledge safe through his impartial perception. By attacking nothing, he presents no barrier at all to the communication of God. Thus, being is never threatened. Your godlike mind can never be defiled. The ego never was and never will be part of it, but through the ego, you can hear and teach and learn what is not true. Ooh, we don't want to do that though, but that's through the ego. You can hear and teach and learn what is not true. From this, which you have made, you have taught yourselves to believe that you are not what you are. You cannot teach what you have not learned, and what you teach you strengthen in yourselves because you are sharing it. Every lesson you teach, you are learning. Wow, every lesson you teach, you are learning. That's why we want to teach only love, for that's what we are. 41. That is why you must teach only one lesson. What is that one lesson? Teach only love, for that is what you are. That is why you must teach only one lesson. If you are to be conflict-free yourselves, you must learn only from the Holy Spirit and teach only by Him. You are only love. But when you denied this, you made what you are something you must learn. We said before that the message of the crucifixion was teach only love, for that is what you are. This is the one lesson which is perfectly unified, because it is the only lesson which is one. Only by teaching it can you learn it. As you teach, so will you learn. If that is true, and it is true indeed, you must never forget that what you teach is teaching you. What you project, you believe. 42. What you project, what you extend is what is teaching you. What you teach is what's going to teach you. The only real safety lies in projecting only the Holy Spirit, because as you see His gentleness in others, your own mind perceives itself as totally harmless. Once it can accept this fully, it does not see the need to protect itself. The protection of God then dawns upon it, assuring it that it is perfectly safe forever. The perfectly safe are wholly benign. They bless because they know they are blessed. Without anxiety, the mind is wholly kind. Without anxiety, the mind is wholly kind. And because it projects beneficence, it is beneficent. 43. Safety is the complete relinquishment of attack. Wow. Safety is the complete relinquishment of attack. No compromise is possible in this. You can't just let it go a little bit. You got to let it go completely. Teach attack in any form, and you have learned it, and it will hurt you. So we don't want to attack at all. We want to relinquish attack. It has to begin in the mind and our thoughts. Yet your learning is not immortal, and you can unlearn it by not teaching it. Since you cannot not teach, you're going to teach all the time. The question is, what are you teaching? We want to teach only love, because that's what we want to learn. Since you cannot not teach, your salvation lies in teaching the exact opposite of everything the ego believes. This is how you will learn the truth that will set you free and keep you so, as others learn it of you. The only way to have peace is to teach peace. The only way to have peace is to teach peace. By learning it through projection, it becomes a part of what you know. By learning it through extending it, by extending this peace, by projecting this peace, by learning it through projection, it becomes a part of what you know, because you cannot teach what you have dissociated. Paragraph 44, last paragraph of this section. Only thus can you win back the knowledge that you threw away. An idea which you share you must have. It awakens in you through the conviction of teaching. Remember that if teaching is being and learning is being, then teaching is learning. Remember that if teaching is being and learning is being, then teaching is learning. Everything you teach, you are learning. Teach only love, and learn that love is yours and you are love. Isn't that just so beautiful? And so that we don't get too far behind, let's go ahead and read about 3 more paragraphs in the next section, the only answer. Section 5, paragraph 45. Remember that the Holy Spirit is the answer, not the question. The ego always speaks first because it is capricious and does not mean its maker well. And capricious means given to sudden and unaccountable changes of mood or behavior. Given to sudden and unaccountable changes of mood or behavior. So the ego always speaks first because it is capricious and does not mean its maker well. So as I was telling you, when you're looking at a new word that maybe you don't use every day and you're trying to get a deeper meaning of the sentence using the word, you can put that definition in and replace it with the word. The ego always speaks first because it is given to sudden and unaccountable changes of mood or behavior and does not mean its maker well. That is because it believes, and correctly, that its maker may withdraw his support from it at any moment. If it meant you well, it would be glad, as the Holy Spirit will be glad when He has brought you home and you no longer need His guidance. The ego does not regard itself as part of you. Herein lies its primary perceptual error, the foundation of its whole thought system. 46. When God created you, He made you part of Him. That is why attack within the kingdom is impossible. You made the ego without love, and so it does not love you. You could not remain within the kingdom without love, and since the kingdom is love, you believe that you are without it. This enables the ego to regard itself as separate and outside its maker, thus speaking for the part of your mind that believes you are separate and outside the mind of God. The ego then raised the first question that was ever asked, but one which it can never answer. The question, "What are you?" was the beginning of doubt. What are you? To not know yourself. 47. The ego has never answered any question since, although it has raised a great many. The most inventive activities of the ego have never done more than obscure the question, because you have the answer and the ego is afraid of you. You cannot understand the conflict until you fully understand one basic fact that the ego does not know. The Holy Spirit does not speak first, but He always answers. The Holy Spirit does not speak first, but He always answers. Everyone has called upon Him for help at one time or another, and in one way or another, and has been answered. Since the Holy Spirit answers truly, He answers for all time, which means that everyone has the answer now. Maybe we should stop right there for today, and let's go back in here. Let's go take a look real quick. What we're going to do, remember, we're going to take 4 5-minute practice periods today, and more if you want to. Take as many as you have time for. He's basically what he's telling you. As many as you can put in would be valuable. And he says, approach this happiest and holiest thoughts with confidence. And listen in deep silence. Be very still and open your minds. Sink deep into the peace that waits for you. God's voice speaks to me all through the day. That is that thought. That is the happiest and holiest of thoughts. God's voice speaks to me all through the day. Let's see how we're looking on tune, and I should have had this tuned already. God's voice speaks to me all through the day. God's voice speaks to me all through the day. God's voice speaks to me all through the day. God's voice speaks to me all through the day. Try to hear God's voice call to you lovingly. Approach this happiest and holiest of thoughts with confidence. Sink deep into the peace that waits for you. Listen in deep silence, be very still and open your mind. God's voice speaks to me all through the day. God's voice speaks to me all through the day. God's voice speaks to me all through the day. God's voice speaks to me all through the day. Are you listening? God's voice speaks to me all through the day. Try to hear God's voice call to you lovingly. Approach this holiest and happiest of thoughts with confidence. Sink deep into the peace that waits for you. Listen in deep silence, be very still and open your mind. God's voice speaks to me all through the day. God's voice speaks to you all through the day. God's voice speaks to me all through the day. God's voice speaks to me all through the day.